And then I think another thing I would mention is senior leadership being very in the detail. So when I talked about the design phase, that let's take Nick, for example, our CEO. He is involved in many calls each week on the minutiae detail of designs for the product. Mm-hmm. And when you have your CEO doing that, and then, everyone in the company focusing that relentlessly on the quality of the product, it sort of permeates throughout the whole company. And again, the alternative to that is, you get to so big and the CEO stops knowing what's actually happening in the product. And I think that would be a very dangerous place to get to. You need to have that relentless focus from all levels of the company.
Welcome to Finscale, the show that takes you to the heart of finance transformation. Every week, Selene Niederkorn and her guests explore new initiatives shaping the future of the industry. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to have James Gibson, General Manager in charge of Revolut Business today. Hello, James. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
So happy to have you in Paris for this recording. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I would love if we could take a few minutes to talk a little bit about your career journey, that you explain to us where you come from. You have an interesting professional path before Revolut. So tell us more about this.
Sure. So I studied at Oxford. I studied politics, philosophy and economics, which for 3 years. And after that, I went and joined Oliver Wyman, which is a strategy consultancy based in London. And I worked all over Europe. I worked in Greece for a while. I worked in South Africa a bit. I worked in London a lot. I did that for about 5 years. And then I joined Revolut about almost 8 years ago now, in the London office, when it was certainly a different, same DNA, different company to the one that exists today. And I've been at Revolut since then. And as you said, my role now is I lead our business products called Revolut Business. I sit on the executive committee for Revolut, and I'm also a partner. We have a partnership program within the company, and I'm one of those as well.
So how did you make the jump from consulting, something that is quite known by everyone, I would say, and particularly when you do Oxford, and then you jumped into Revolut? How did you meet the team, and why did you decide to go in that direction?
So there were two, I think, overriding reasons why I decided to make the move. So the first was I saw what was happening in America with tech companies, and I was fairly convinced a similar revolution was going to happen in Europe just a couple of years later, when tech started to become a much more common thing that people went into. And I thought it was amazing the kind of products that you could produce this way. And it's obviously it's the modern, it is technology after all. And I thought that's really where you want to be in your career, is working in a kind of frontier, building something for the future. So that was one. And then we were doing these consulting projects at Oliver Wyman for institutions that basically wanted to digitize. And they were looking at the likes of Revolut for inspiration of what they should do.
Yeah.
And I thought it was insane to be at that stage in my career advising on that, when obviously I had no experience at that point. But also I thought, why don't I go and actually try and be one of the people doing the creation? And so I went to Revolut and really begged for a job. I said I would take almost any job in the company. I just wanted to have a shot and having some experience working for a company like Revolut. And then thankfully Nick gave me a job.
What was the job?
Well, the first job was business development.
Okay.
Again, I said I would do anything, so business development was the job. And turns out it's not what I loved, to be honest. I really I much more enjoyed, and I got a chance to do this early on, was actually creating products from scratch. So I launched our first travel insurance product, which was a pay per day product where you could just pay for the days that you use the insurance, which is very cool. Sadly, we no longer do it. But I had the opportunity to create this product working with engineers, working with design to do it. And I found it really, really fun. It was like you create something from scratch. You go from having nothing to a product that people are using and then paying for. And I saw this product from build through to launch, and that convinced me that product was what I wanted to do. So once again, I begged the product function at that time and said, I will do anything, to move into more of a product role. And again, some people gave me a shot, and I went in doing the most basic stuff within product. And then that's where I really felt like I found an area that I was good at and that I also enjoyed. And that allowed me to then progress through the company and then ultimately to my role today.
When you go back, the first day at Revolut, when you think about that first day, what were your first impressions? What was your reaction coming from this consulting realm, which is so different in terms of mentality, agility, culture, everything? What was your first impression?
That's a great question. And I turned up on the first day. There are a few things that I remember. One is that I was wearing a shirt, a smart, like like you would if you're a consultant shirt, and no one else was, so I stopped doing that.
Everyone laughed at you.
Yeah.
Almost.
And I just realized that wasn't the vibe, let's say. And then I got there to the offices, which were in London, and I sat down and I thought you'd have your induction and then you have your training or whatever. And I sat there for half an hour, 45 minutes. Finally, someone came and said, okay, I think you need to come with me. I think we've got a laptop for you. Let me check. All the things you would kind of assume that would happen in a startup. And it was exactly like that. Sort of work it out yourself, get set up on Slack, and then day 2, let's start going. This is what you need to do. Go for it. So compared to consulting, which is an amazing machine of how of onboarding people, of training them up, this really was just going in at the deep end with very little structure.
And how did the culture evolve? Because when you arrive, I did it because after working in banking, I created my company. It failed. So I said to myself, I have to work in a startup to see how it's happening when it doesn't fail. And then I was so shocked to have that, different culture. And then the company grew. You had a lot of recruitments. So the culture I had, because I was the first employee, culture I had in the beginning and when I left were completely different cultures. So how did it evolve? If you could describe a little bit. So we see the culture for startup. It was really startup mode. But then now, today, it's a scale-up, big scale-up. How does it look like day to day? If we just focus on the culture, what is the most striking thing you're thinking about when it comes to the culture of Revolut?
So in terms of how it's evolved, it has changed, but what I would say is a bit like saying how has someone's character changed between the ages of a 12-year-old and a 30-year-old. Yes, it's evolved a lot, and it's evolved, but some of the core characteristics, the fundamentals, have stayed the same. And so in our case, and I think that's because a company is really made in the shape of its founder or founders, and that's where the culture comes from. And in our case, that hasn't changed. We still have the same founders, and as a result, the culture remains kind of consistent over that time. So to give you an example, part of our culture, one of our values is get it done. So delivery is critical, and it's not about the process necessarily as much as it is about actually delivering on the result. And back early on, that was very apparent, very raw, I would say, focus on that and push from everyone to deliver results. And that now is a bit more structured. We have fantastic internal tooling to help us identify what needs to be done and measure all of these things. It's our people product, which we actually now commercializing. And but the fundamental is still there. Or another one of our values is never settle. So back then, people worked long hours very consistently, and would put time in at the weekends. That wasn't unusual. And even now, we still work very hard. That kind of fundamental hasn't changed. We make sure it's sustainable, but we still have that. So I'd say culture, ultimately, the core cultural characteristics remain the same. It's just that it becomes a bit more of a polished, maybe you lose some of the more extreme elements of it over time. That's only been my experience.
Okay, I will tell you one story I have in mind when it comes to Revolut. It's my personal story about when I opened the first time I opened a bank account at Revolut was in my car. I was driving, I shouldn't say it. And then I was shocked because my husband told me it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. You absolutely need to open an account at Revolut. And then he did all that stuff. I was driving, and then he just presented the mobile device in front of my face. I just did a check, and then it was done. It was, first experience was really shocking for me. Second one was just to update some evidences. I needed to I don't remember, maybe I had hit a threshold, and it took me like 20 seconds discussion with the chat, and said to myself, it's absolutely amazing. How did you maintain for such a long period that quality? And it remains, because I'm still a Revolut business. How is it possible to maintain that very high quality of service and reactivity for your tools so efficiently?
So I think it's kind of relentless focus on, this is used a lot, but it's a real focus on what the customer experience is. So all of our product design starts with designs, which maybe sounds obvious, but I'm not sure that's how it works in all companies. So we literally start in Figma. Okay, what is the customer experience going to be? And we spend a lot of time, and we go very, very deep on the design phase. And we have a weekly meeting where we review final designs, and we have other ways of kind of reviewing them. And we get to a point where it gets signed off. And that design is really it's not even a blueprint. It is very high fidelity design of exactly what we're going to build. And into that design is built things like that, like the speed is a given, or the number of screens, let's say. And we'll challenge on everything, like, why are we doing this over 3? Why do we even need this screen? And then, okay, we need this information. Why are we doing it over 2 screens? Why not consolidate into one? Okay, we can fetch this information, I don't know, automatically from somewhere. Why do we even need this? Why is the copy, framed as a question? Why is it not just the item you need, so that someone can read it and then say, okay, I get it. I need, payslip. Say payslip. And having, so some people find this level of challenge at the design phase painful, and it can be. But that, I think, is a key component of how then, once we get to the end of the design phase and we've got these designs and we then move into the build phase, what we build is actually something which is beautiful. And the alternative way, right, is you start off with a very loose concept of what you want to do. You then don't have all the challenge, and you just build something, and then 2 months later you say, it wasn't really, it's not that good, is it? You need to get that out of the way in the most efficient way you can, and that's doing it as early as possible. So I think that's one. We all use the product, obviously, a lot, and that helps when there is embarrassment if your aspect of the product is not great.
Yeah.
And I think that keeping social pressure does help a lot. And then I think another thing I would mention is senior leadership being very in the detail. So when I talked about the design phase, that let's take Nick, for example, our CEO. He is involved in many calls each week on the minutiae detail of designs for the product. Mm-hmm. And when you have your CEO doing that, and then, everyone in the company focusing that relentlessly on the quality of the product, it sort of permeates throughout the whole company. And again, the alternative to that is, you get to so big and the CEO stops knowing what's actually happening in the product. And I think that would be a very dangerous place to get to. You need to have that relentless focus from all levels of the company.
It's well done.
Most of the time.
Okay, so we focused on the B2C aspect of Revolut. You're in charge of Revolut Business. So I said to you, I tested it a few weeks ago. really impressed again. Can you tell us a bit more about why Revolut decided to move in that direction? Because it's a huge difference. Serving a consumer business is completely different from service a business, companies, small companies, big companies. So what was the trigger of launching business activities?
It is different, and obviously the needs of businesses do differ, but some of the fundamentals remain the same. So a business, like a personal customer, needs to exchange money and hold money in different accounts. A business needs to be able to spend money and send money abroad. And what happened 2 years roughly after the personal product was launched is a lot of the customers who were using it said, you know what, this would be just the same product would be amazing for my business. Can you do that? And this was before I joined, but then Nick and the team launched Revolut Business, actually, which happened around the same time that I joined. And got really quick traction with businesses for exactly the same reason that the personal product did, because it solved a very real problem for these businesses. And those problems were, I want to be able to sign up for an account, quickly. I don't want to wait 2-3 weeks and have to go to my high street branch 4 times, which is typically what you have to do. I want a multi-currency account, so I can hold money and exchange it like you can on the personal product. I want to be able to send money around the world. Maybe you have your suppliers in other countries, or staff who you need to pay their salaries to all over the world. I need to be able to spend money on cards because I have subscriptions, and I need to pay my Google ads, and then I need to pay my go on my business trip to wherever, and I need to be able to have the post-spend accounting aspect of that as well. And so obviously these products are built up over time, but like that kind of core was needed from day one, and that's what we were able to launch. I mean, with a version of that, and that's what we've then filled out over the subsequent years. And now adding more products like treasury products, by which I mean savings and flexible cash funds, so that businesses can grow their money. But again, it's solving a similar need to what a personal customer has, and then we solve it. The UI is very similar because we want to leverage the patterns that have worked very well on the personal side. But it's just, all the limits are larger. We have approvals layered into it. We have permission management. We have integrations with accounting software. So there are these twists that businesses need, which personal customers don't. But the absolute core of the product is quite similar.
And in terms of revenues, what does it represent?
So today, in last year, in 2024, about 15% of group revenue is made up from Revolut Business. That's growing. So yeah, it's a growing part of our strategy, and we see longer term, it should be a really quite a significant part of the Revolut growth story.
No doubt. So I was also interested to know more about the unique positioning of Revolut Business compared to neobanks. You have a lot of competition on neobanks banks or tech companies in that realm, but also traditional banks that become more and more digitized. How do you make it very specific and what is your unique positioning?
Well, so our unique positioning is firstly that we have a personal customer base, which a lot of our competition don't, and that introduces customers to the product. They understand again like our patterns and how the product is structured, and that helps us acquire customers because they learn about the product there and then they come to business. But also helps us kind of leverage a lot of the patterns and some of the technology from that side that we can use for business customers as well. It also means having that personal customer base. We have products. We have one called Revolut Pay, for example, which is you as an ultimate customer can pay for a product just using your Revolut phone number, and then you'll be able to make it in a few taps. So it makes it really, really slick checkout experience, and the checkout experience exists on the business side. So for our merchants, they basically, if they use Revolut Pay, which a lot of them do, they then get access to our customer base of millions of customers worldwide who can suddenly pay them using this really amazing kind of piece of technology. We also have a pretty unique FX proposition where you can exchange money at the interbank rate, and you can also hold money in many currencies. No one really has something that's comparable to that. So that's pretty unique. And with businesses being more and more global today, that's like a kind of a great hook. And then I'd say the final thing we have is we have a really broad product. And historically, people used to say, Revolut's doing so many different things, well, shouldn't it just do one thing? But now what this means is we have, and this is on business and on the personal side, we can really solve a lot of problems in one place. So we call it an all-in-one business account, because not only do you have the multi-currency accounts, the exchange, but you also make global payments, local payments, and you have these treasury products as well, and then card and spend management products. So it's all in one place. You don't need to have 5 different accounts. And that's again pretty unique.
Which segments are you focusing the most on today? Like freelancers, SMEs?
We service a really broad range. So we service businesses from freelancers through to large international corporations. Compared to some of our competition, our business is typically a bit larger. We serve some, really quite big businesses. But we also do smaller ones as well. So it's a real range. The industries where we sort of see, I say, the most product market fit is anything that has an international element. So, which is quite a lot of businesses. Anything that involves FX or payments, we are a very natural choice for those kind of businesses. And then in terms of industries, travel, because of the kind of global aspect of it, e-commerce and marketing, because a lot of it's online. Our product works really well online, as you can imagine, and our cards make it really easy to pay for ads, for example, or pay for subscriptions. I would say, and then kind of broadly consulting businesses or businesses again, where they just need something kind of relatively simple to be able to hold and exchange money. But we're really attracting a very broad range of businesses now, which is one of the exciting things. We're also live in, and again, this is something that sets us apart from some of our competitors, is we're live across all of Europe.
Yes, it's amazing. You also have accounts in Luxembourg. We do.
As I said, it's not quite our top market.
I
but
find it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Because
but why not? It's one of the great things about Europe. And we're also live in the UK. Obviously, it's our largest market. But we're also, the Revolut Business is live in Singapore, Australia, and the US as well. So
I didn't know for the US.
Yeah, so a lot of the businesses that open up business accounts there are actually European businesses who then have US operations. They have a US entity. And so what we allow them to do is sign up. You have your 2 entities in the same platform. You can manage money super easily between the 2. And then when you want to make a payment from one to the other, or maybe, from another, or for anyone basically who's within the Revolut, has a Revolut account, be it a personal account or a business account, transfers between them are instant and free, which compared to some of these international payment mechanisms is an incredible value proposition for our customers.
I was interested to dive deeper in your key go-to-market strategies across these different markets, because it's one thing to be available in one country and another one to have active clients. So how do you balance the different countries? You cannot be present in all European countries. You have to focus maybe on some than others.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic of conversation this morning, in fact, which is how do we prioritize where we work? So up until about a year ago, we really just went, pretty much global, I would say. We launch products that just work are relevant for customers basically in all markets. We always try and launch products across all the markets rather than trying to do it, market by market where we can. And broadly, that works quite well. But what we found about a year ago was if you really want to win, or if you really want businesses to use you as a primary account in, let's say, France, you need to have there are specific features which are just specific to France. So as we talked about before, we started airing the accounting platform integrations, for example, are really quite different in different countries. You just have to support that if you're going to support businesses. Or, for example, paying tax in France, You need B2B direct debits. And then or you need a French IBAN. You shouldn't need one because it's not supposed to be. The way it practically works, you do actually have to have this. So about a year and a half ago, we started thinking, you know what, we actually, if we're going to, go to the next level, we're going to have to start localizing basically properly. And so we launched a really big body of work about a year ago to start doing this across many markets, focusing on, to answer your original question, we have a short list of about 8 Western European markets, I mean, the big ones, to make sure that we are localized for those markets. And so as a result, we've launched things like French IBANs, Spanish IBANs, integrations with accounting platforms, things like the B2B direct debit. We've improved some of the language localization. We're launching these savings accounts now specific to specific markets. So that's been a big shift for us, and but it's really paying dividends now. Like we can see in all the metrics, suddenly businesses have gone from using us very much as a secondary account in those markets to now adopting us as their primary account, and that's exactly why we did it. And it's a real validation of the approach, and so we now want to do this in more markets, basically. So Luxembourg, I'm afraid to say it's not one of our
very small niche.
Didn't make it onto that list of 8, but it's near the top of the next list.
One question on the product, because you mentioned a lot of different features. How do you prioritize those features? Is there more room of maneuver per country? How is it working concretely?
So all our teams are global. We don't have, a France engineering team. So firstly, to say actually, our product and engineering and design teams are with their cross-functional teams. So everyone sits within one team, and they are global. We don't have any country-specific ones. But what that means then is, say, our transfers team that's just focusing on building amazing transfer experience for our businesses. We have to prioritize, as you say, across how do you choose between making a payment for tax in France versus Spain? So what we've done, which is a good question, and I wouldn't claim that we've got it. There's 2 ways we do it. So firstly, we're very KPI driven, which is one of our, I think is quite well known about our culture. So you ask anyone at Revolut what their KPIs are, and they will be able to tell you very, very clearly what they're being measured on and what their current, the latest is day by day. And we can track it in real time, even hour by hour in some cases. And that helps prioritize, right? Because you say, right, well, let's say the transfers team, let's say the KPI, it's not this, but was the proportion of our customers that make one tax payment per year. And you can then start to say, well, let's look at it by country, and let's look at what proportion of the businesses in that country are and then are not. And then could we, what would happen if we launched tax payments in that country? So being metrics driven gives you a really good guide. It doesn't always help, because sometimes you might need to just do something which wouldn't drive your metric, but ultimately helps the entire product. And that's where we get a bit more top down, and we say, okay, for these 8 markets that we need to localize, we just have to go through and do tax payments in each market, let's say, or we need to build integrations for these integrations. But we almost always try and make it kind of metric driven, so it's sort of clearer why we're doing something to drive a metric, rather than just saying we're going to do this.
If now it's been launched since years, but if you're thinking of one client, one persona in particular, do you think that Revolut now is shifting to the primary account? Yes. Would you say that?
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's not the case for in the B2C realm. People still have their own branch, and that's my feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. But for businesses, it's the same, or are you seeing that it's shifting?
So firstly, on the personal side, we're seeing this shift happen. There are more and more customers who are using us as their primary account and getting their salary deposited there. And it's a big push of ours to build on that kind of momentum. But we have a way to go, for sure. On the business side, interestingly, we are, while there are a number of customers who do use us as a secondary account, we estimate about 50% of our customers are using us as their primary account. And
rather small businesses?
So it will skew slightly more towards smaller businesses. but 50% is really quite a significant number.
Clearly.
And I think the reason for that is, we offer, we really offer the same as what, your high street bank might offer. It's just, in most cases, will be much better. The experience will be better. You can get it on web app, mobile app.
And credits too?
We don't do credit. That's a good point. So you
No,
would have to. That's a missing piece in the
Yes.
equation, and actually something we are working on at the moment in France. That is coming,
Okay.
but we haven't found that that's held us back so far. Our businesses tend to, but we still have a large chunk of our customers using us as their primary account.
Okay, so if we think forward, how do you see the market for business banking evolving in the coming 5 years?
I think we're just getting started on the kind of revolution of B2B finance technology. I think it's about 5 years behind where the retail market is. And if you look at the penetration rates of products like ours across Europe, I think it shows that we're still just scratching the surface. There is just so much more we can do. So I think the tide will continue. And I think as that happens, as more and more businesses, trust institutions like ours, it will kind of speed up the move. And then I think it will be, it starts to become an actual detriment to your business if you're still using, let's say, more legacy systems, because the drag on you as a business in terms of cost and actually be able to get stuff done will start to materially impact bottom line. So again, I think that will speed up the transition. I think there'll be pressure on larger, like the legacy banks to compete, and I think it's going to be quite hard, to be honest, at least on a technology level. There might be other ways they can compete, credit, for example, as you say. They obviously have they're able to do things there which they've built up over many years. But at least on just transactional banking, I think it's going to be very, very hard. And then I think what you'll see is more and more aspects of finance get kind of digitized. And so while our product at its core is transactional banking, you'll see more software get kind of pulled into that. So financial planning, for example, which a lot of businesses will still just use a spreadsheet for. There's no reason that couldn't be done beautifully in some, a bit like budgeting software you might get on the retail side. And so I think you'll start to see more and more of the software which surrounds the transactional banking come to market.
That's good news.
I think it'll be amazing.
For me, that would be good news.
Yeah, for small businesses. I also think, we have products like FX Forwards, for example, which allows you to lock in future exchange rates today. And, lock in today's exchange rate for the future. And this traditionally was only available to very large or relatively large businesses or who went to specialized providers for this. What we are providing is we let, most of our customers can have access to this. So I think the kind of democratization of some of these features and products to a broader range of businesses, in particular smaller businesses, will sort of continue, which is really exciting, I think.
And James, what makes you up at night when you think of the next steps of Revolut Business?
Oh my goodness.
The hot stuff.
You mean what worries me? I think there's lots of things that we obviously worry about. I mean, part of it is we need to keep the momentum going as a product, as a team. There is, I believe, a huge opportunity here for the whole market to kind of revolutionize. And I think we have a great opportunity to do it. And I just want to make sure that we deliver that for our customers. I don't think you get that opportunity too many times in life. So I want to make sure that we make the most of it now. I think that's only one of the things that keeps me up at night.
Okay, so my last word, James, that was very interesting, but I always have a last word. And my last word is asking my guest a book recommendation. So is there one specific book about business, but not only business, that you would love our auditors to read?
The book which I would always, which is not about business at all, I'm afraid, is a book called Any Human Heart by William Boyd, which when I read it a number of years ago, and I've read it once, twice since, really changed my perspective on life, because it's a story of a guy, and it goes from his early years all the way through to his death, and sort of charts his movement through the 20th century and how it's impacted by real events. And it just taught me how life is a bit of a roller coaster. Stuff happens which you don't know is going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen next. And you kind of have to go with the flow of these things and take advantage of when there's opportunity, and then know that sometimes things are going to go wrong. And I've now bought the book for many, many people. And I think it's a great kind of lesson in life, and a great way to try and contextualize your life.
Thank you very much, James. That was so insightful.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Finscale. Don't hesitate to subscribe to the newsletter on Substack to stay up to date with the latest innovations. You can also find the podcast in audio format on all listening platforms and in video format on YouTube. See you soon with Solène Niederkorn.